Welcome back, my YouTubers. In this episode it's about the installation of the solar panels, and the very first job that you need to be doing is cleaning that roof, getting all the bits of rust sorted out and spraying the top if necessary, because accessing the roof may not be easy once the panels are fitted.
So I've put these screw bolts through, and basically they just keep spinning. So what we're going to do is replace them with proper bolts and washers, which was the general idea anyway. This is what was supplied with the brackets, but I don't think they're adequate. It just keeps spinning, the thread's not good enough, tight enough here. So the whole point of me leaving the ceiling off was so that I could put bolts on and they'll be a permanent fixture. Right, so I've drilled bigger holes to put the bolts in, as you can see. So I'm not going to bother priming them, I'll just get rid of that. Well, actually, that's just paint. It's a neat cut. Anyway, I'm just going to put Sikaflex in copious amounts in there, which will just seal it all around. It'll be airtight, it'll never rust. So let's get on with that. So they've now poked through, so we're going to put some Sikaflex on the inside, a washer and a nut, and tighten these up. See, they're all nice and sealed and nice and tight. These are effectively glued on by the Sikaflex because it's squashed into everywhere and it's in the thread. so it should never ever come loose. I mean, they are really tight anyway, so they're not going to come loose, but the Cycloflex will fuse it in place too, a bit like Loctite.
Right, so we've got the wires coming out from the roof via these rubber grommets that will stop any chafing on this, because you really don't want any chafing on these wires. It will then go into this trunking, so I'm going to feed that up a bit more, like so, of which it will then feed along this truss. It will then be fed into the wall, and it will be fed behind the wall, and then it will pop out underneath the settee, where I will fit an isolating switch. I'm going to fit 2 isolating switches, one for each wire at the moment, because I've got 2 isolating switches but I've got no fuse. On the live wire it will be replaced with a fuse, the isolating switch, and on the negative wire the isolating switch will remain, so that I can isolate the electricity if I need to work on the solar panels or down below with all the electrical gubbins and whatnot. Right, so once I've got everything set up down below, I can connect the solar panels up top. I've got all the connectors. I've got triple connectors for each wire, but I do need to order still some MC4 individual fuses for each individual solar panel. I've got to rate them up yet. I'm not quite sure which ones I want. So once I've rated them up, I will order them. I will tell you at the back end of this video exactly all the technical data, the size of the wirings, the size of the fusings, etc. That'll all be at the end of this video if you keep watching, along with the diagram. But for now, I've just got to get this fitted in the ceiling, because I want to get this ceiling fitted back up. I want to get the insulation in, and then I can crack on with the rest of the build. So the wires come out of the entry box on the roof, all nice and neat. We've got some grommets here because there would be a serious cut in the sheath if we didn't have this protection. We try and get them coming vertically down, turn, and along here, along the trunking, along the truss, along the trunking, and then eventually it will drop down into this trunking, and it will run down the wall right down to the bottom where the settee is, and it will pop out somewhere around here where the isolation switch will be put. Right, so what's it going to be for the terminals for the solar panels? Is it going to be crimp on its own? Is it going to be tinned and crimped? Is it going to be tinned and soldered? Or is it going to be just soldered? Or is it going to be crimped and soldered? Well, I've opted for just crimping only, basically, because the way I see it, I've double crimped that and I cannot pull it out. I've tried with pliers, so that is a good fix, basically. And with it not having any solder on it at all, basically it's got a lot more flexibility, and this will need to be flexible under the vibration of the van. Now, because it's quite high powered, because it's coming from the solar, I do not want this to fail. I do not want it to snap and start touching other stuff. So I think I'm just going to go for crimp, double crimp with nothing, and then just put a sheath over the top. What do you reckon? Okay, so now we have completed all the installation of the panels on the van, and we have run a feed through the van roof down to the isolating switches. of which one isolating switch will remain and the other one will be replaced with a 30 amp fuse. Now basically all we've got left to do is to connect all three panels together. So I've got three 100 watt panels. So I've bought these MC4 triple connectors rated at 30 amps, which is well within the parameters of my 100 watt panels, so that's okay. Now theoretically you should have individual fuses on each panel when you start going up to 3 or more panels, but so long as you're under say 1000 watts it's not deemed to be necessary, although I think I will in the future. However, right now I'm not actually going to power the solar panels up. All I'm going to do in this video is install it and connect them up, and I'm going to take a reading to see if we're getting some power from them basically, and once we hit that point we can conclude this video. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to get back outside, I'm going to get on the roof. The front panel, the lead on the front panel doesn't reach the other two back panels, nor it doesn't reach the wires that come with the feed into the van. So I've bought an extension lead, which is 4mm. Apparently I checked on the internet with the calculator and it said for the rating of the solar panel I should be using 4mm cable. However, I believe the solar panels cables that come with the solar panels are only 2.5, but I got the 4mm to be on the safe because it's always better to scale up. So it's all I've got to do. I'm going to be wiring in parallel, and that's because of the parameters of my Ctek D250SE charger, what I'm going to be using. So it's all the negatives together, all the positives together. So I've bought these triple connectors. So it's all I'll do is connect the front one into here, like so, with the negative. Likewise with the positive, the red cable, and then the 6mm main feed cable, where all these three come together into one. That will go into there, which then runs down into the isolating switch where I can kill any power at any point in time when I wish. Right now it's going to be killed permanently because I haven't got the DC to DC charger. But anyway, so that's what I'm going to do, and I'll see you down there. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the video. Now what we're going to do, what's left remaining for this video, is to just do a little bit of tech talk, which basically I'm going to explain about the parts that I've bought and why I've bought the parts. So if we move on to the solar panels first, I bought the eco-worthy Generate 100-watt solar panels. They are the compact version, and I did originally want to purchase the Renogy compact. They were more favourable, slightly more expensive by about 15-20 quid a panel, but for some reason I favoured them. They performed the best according to all the spec that I read. However, because of the lockdown and I'm in England and not in America, sourcing the compact ones were virtually impossible, so I switched to these eco-worthy ones, which come with really good reviews. However, I must say I'm not overly happy with some of the connectors on there. I'm a bit dubious whether they're actually waterproof, although the connectors will be under the solar panels if there is a deluge of, say, rain from a storm or something like that whilst I'm driving. Then basically there could be issues with ingress of water, I think, in the connectors. I'm very tempted. I've bought some Renogy MC4 connectors and I'm thinking about replacing all of them, if I'm honest, because the Renogy ones have little rubber grommet type seals that are really good, but in the eco-worthy ones, when I look at their connectors, they don't have any rubber grommet. It's just a compressor thing where the teeth come together when you tighten up, and I can't see that being a perfect watertight seal, if I'm honest. But anyway, for now it's done. It's under the solar panel and we just have to go with that for time being. Now, I have 3 100-watt solar panels on the roof. Now, there will be a fourth one, which is going to be exactly identical to the others, but it will be wired separately into a separate charge controller. That is going to be wired into my hot water tank. It is going to be used, that one solar panel, just to try and keep my water at a high temperature so it doesn't lose the heat. It's an experiment, something that's coming up in the future. But for now, I have 3 others that are going to be wired in parallel. And the reason why they're going to be wired in parallel is because the Ctek charge controller that I'm going to be using cannot go above 23 volts. So therefore, I need to wire in parallel so I keep the voltage below 23 volts. Also, we need to keep the amps below 25 amps. Now, if we do the normal calculations, which is taking a 100-watt solar panel, divide that by 12 volts, it will give you 8.33 amps. Now, if you times that by 3 100-watt solar panels, that will give you very close to 25 amps. Now, that is borderline. We don't want to take the machine to that position, so we need to have less amps. So what we need to do is take a look at the back of the solar panels, because that will give you the full data, basically, of all the figures. Now, if you take the short circuit current, that only comes in at 6.13 amps. Now, that is way lower than the 8.33 amps that we calculated using the usual calculation. So therefore, if we take the short circuit current as the gospel, the highest, this is without a load, so it can only be lower. We take that as the highest. We know that we're well safe. So this setup is fantastic for what we need. But for what we need for the Ctek D250SE, if I want to go higher than that, if I want a bigger rig, then I need to add the smart pass underneath as shown here. Now basically, the reason why I've bought this machine is so that if I want to increase the electricity or the solar power for this camper van, then I can do by adding that smart pass and increasing my solar panel array, or changing them for bigger solar panels although I don't think I want to do that because the compacts are quite nice, but I may do add-on panels when I'm camping. So basically, I've drawn up a diagram so you can see the solar system. Now, I don't mean the solar system in the sky, I mean the solar system that theoretically will still be above your head, but on the roof, not in the stars. But anyway, this solar system, the schematics for this is very, very simple. I've wired it in parallel, as you can see. So all the wires from the solar panels are approximately 2.5 millimeters. The front solar panel has had an extension lead put on it, and I've put a 4 millimeter lead on there. And then all the panels connect in parallel, so that's all the pluses and all the minuses together into the MC4 triple connectors, of which if you follow the line from there, that wire is going to be, or is 6 millimeter squared. So that is a thicker one because it's taking the 3 panels from that point. However, it also will take a lot more. I think it goes up to 45 amps, does the 6 millimeter wire. So if I decide to add the 4th panel, then my 6 millimeter squared wire is already in place to take that 4th panel. Now I've just quickly checked. The actual 6 millimeter squared wire is 25 to 32 amps, it says it carries. Now, if I wanted to go to a really huge supply, that wire is already in place. I'd either have to run another wire, a thicker one, or I could actually wire in series, which would increase the volts, but it would keep the amperature the same, roughly. So, you know, there's ways around it. The more, if you do it in series, basically, then you can keep the wire thin. The whole point of wiring in series is so that you don't have to have a thick wire, because if you keep the voltage high and the amps low, you can have thinner wires, which helps for expense and it helps for weight as well. However, the rig I'm using only allows up to 23 volts. But that's not a problem because I prefer in parallel, because that means all the panels, if one panel is shaded or there's an object on another panel, the rest of them will still work. There won't be, like in series, there will be a chain reaction. It will seriously reduce your input, basically. So I prefer parallel as it stands at the moment. Okay, so the next thing we need to move on to, which is coming to the conclusion of this video, is the isolating switch. This is simply there, put on the negative. At the moment, there's one on the negative and one on the positive because I haven't got the Ctek charge controller fitted in place yet. So therefore, they're just terminating at them points. But I will change the live one for a fuse. Now, the fuse, that will be placed over here, basically, and that will be a 30 amp fuse. Now, the wire is capable of 32 amps. Now, they're always capable of more. I know that if it was a fixed core, that's where I was getting the mistake from. If it were a single core, it would be capable of 45 amps, but because it's a multi-core, apparently this one's rated at 32. So the fuse needs to be at 30, so therefore that will burn out before the wires will burn out in the event of an overload or something like that. Right, okay, so the very last thing of the video is to just go back on the Ctek units that I've decided to use. Now, the reason for this is because mainly I can add the smart pass and I can add a lot more panels, or I can do other things with it. So that's there for future proofing. Now, the other reason is I really like the terminals. You can get some ring terminals on there, no problem at all. Not like some of the other solar charge controllers that have got little dinky screws to try and ram everything into. And then also it's a smart unit, and it basically can do quite a lot of things all in this neat little package, one of which you can do with a split charge relay. So I don't have a smart alternator on my van, so I only need to wire this to my starter battery, and to my leisure battery. Now with this machine, it will prioritize the leisure battery from the solar panel, but if that is topped up, it will divert the energy to the starter battery and then keep that topped up. Basically, if the starter battery is topped up from the alternator, any spare energy from the alternator will then flood back into the leisure battery. So these are a few reasons why I picked this machine. I quite like it. It's a high quality machine, so we're going with that. There are other machines out there that are a lot more cheaper. Cheap isn't always the best option when you're talking about electrics. So that's that. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you soon.